everyone, welcome back to my channel. This week I'm going to be doing kind of a realistic what I read in a week. How much do I read on my day today? Today is Monday and I've got a little bit of driving to do for work, so I'm going to pop in an audiobook. Something I've been participating in this year is the Books and Lala Buzzword Reading Challenge, just as something fun to do each month. And I realized there's a week left in the month and I haven't done it yet, so the challenge for this month is to read a book with in the title, and I'm going to reread Comfort Me with Apples because it's only about a 2-hour audiobook, so I think I could knock that out today and check that off of my goals for the month. So yeah, it's a nice rainy day here and I'm just gonna get started with my work day and pop in my audiobook. Okay, so I'm back home, work day is done, and I'll come in with a little update. So I was able to start and finish Comfort Me with Apples, and I'm kind of not bummed that I reread it because I felt like I forgot a lot of the details. But the first time I read it, I gave it a 4, and I'm bumping it down to maybe like a 3.75, which isn't a huge change, but I just ended up not being as drawn to it as the first time I read it. And I felt like there were a lot of parts kind of in the middle of the book where things would happen and then immediately escape me. I felt like I was having a hard time, like, truly tuning in to what was happening and having a hard time focusing on the story. And I remembered that happening the first time I read, so I don't know if it's me or if it's the book, but I'm gonna bump that down to 3.75. I do still think that it's worth the read, especially if you like gothic or twisted housewife stories. It's a horror novella about this main character, Sophia, who loves her husband and her perfect life so much, and then things start to slowly fall apart and things start to seep through the cracks. It's a novella, it's really short. The audiobook was only 2 hours, so that was why I was able to knock it out in a work day. I found some of the like biblical references in the book to be really in your face, and I liked what he was saying about kind of the Bible story it was referencing, but I wish that there was a little bit more subtlety to it because I think that that would have made it more impactful. I did listen to about 30 minutes of the third Mistborn book, The Hero of Ages, at the gym this morning, which I'm really loving that. I listened to an interview with Brandon Sanderson one time where he talked about how his inspiration for Mistborn was a story where the evil villain was right. And I feel like the third book is where we're really starting to see how right he was and how much he was protecting people from. And I think that that's really cool. I can't say too much since it's the third book in a trilogy, but I am just really liking where the story's going so far and it's keeping me really intrigued. And then, of course, because I'm never just reading one book at once, I listened to a single chapter of Evenings and Weekends by Oisín McKenna, and this book is kind of disappointing for me, but I'm still determined to finish it because I bought a copy of it in Ireland, and I have a harder time DNFing books that I physically own, but this just kind of follows a bunch of interconnected stories over a weekend in London during a heat wave. I don't know if it's just because I don't know London well. I've been there once and it was for a day. I've heard people that do know London really well feel really immersed in the story and feel like it really paints London well, but I don't necessarily get that because I'm not familiar with it already. And I was really expecting to be blown away by the writing, and I'm just very neutral about it. So I think I just went in with a little bit of high expectations. I'm gonna finish it. It at the very least, it's a messy story. So yeah, I listened to one chapter of Evenings and Weekends, and my plan for the night, I lit a nice little fall candle. I'm gonna put on a little ambiance reading video, and I'm gonna lock in and keep reading Royal Assassin. I read, I think, just shy of 300 pages this past weekend, and I'm in the juicy parts. It's getting so good. The action's picking up. The puzzle pieces and all of the groundwork that she lays in the first 60% is all starting to come together and fall into place. So I'm really excited to just get cozy and eat this one up and maybe finish it tonight. I don't think I will just because I have a pretty early morning tomorrow, but we'll see. We'll see how far I get. Yeah, that's my little Monday update. Wednesday, halfway through the work week. Check in with my reading so far. I finished Royal Assassin last night, big feat, and oh my god, 5 stars. So good. So good. I did not expect the ending to go the way that it did. Robin Hobb just continues to surprise me. Of course, her world building and the depth of her characters, and her writing just continues to be phenomenal. So I love that series. My reward for myself for finishing a book in this series is that's when I'll go and buy the next one. So once that next payday hits, me and Barnes & Noble are going to have a little friendly encounter. Once I finished Royal Assassin, I read a couple chapters of Road of Bones on my Kindle. I have a book club coming up for it this weekend, which is an ambitious book to finish in a week. And I can't lie, I feel like my brain is a brick wall and that plot is a tennis ball. And it is truly just bouncing right off. Like, I'm having a hard time following it. There's a lot of characters and they're just like, it feels like I'm dropped into the middle of an established world, which on one hand is a good thing because you can tell that the author knows her world really well. But on the other hand, I'm having a hard time like orienting myself to like who these people are and what they're doing and what's happening. So I've been doing that one tandem with my Kindle, and then the audiobook is on Spotify, so that's been helping, but I don't know that this is going to be the most highly rated book, and I'm just hoping I finish it by book club time. Plan for today is to continue on in the Hero of Ages. I've got quite a bit of driving to do on this work day, so I'm going to try and make a good chunk in Hero of Ages. It's like a 21-hour audiobook, so definitely not finishing it, but progress is my goal. Yeah, I'll check in with any reading updates and keep going with my day. Happy Friday, everyone. We've reached end of the work week, end of this little vlog. So I'm going to end with a little bit of a check-in and a wrap-up on how my reading went this week. So I had a pretty chill week. I really only had one day after the workday where I had things going on, and that was Thursday. My fiance and I had our 5-year anniversary, so we went out for a nice little dinner, which I think trumps reading time. But in terms of what I read this week, how much I read this week, I had a really productive reading week. I had a big slump over June and July, and I felt really reinvigorated to read this week. I felt like I had the itch, I had the bug. Every day I looked forward to coming home and picking up my book and just sitting and reading. So obviously Monday I picked up and I started and finished Comfort Me with Apples. I don't typically finish a book in a day on a work day, but it was a 2-hour novella. I had time in my day to listen to the audiobook, and so that was an easy one to knock out and reread. Didn't like it as much on the reread as I kind of talked about earlier, but still glad I did because I had wanted to reread it at some point anyway. And then moving along to the rest of my week, I was able, after like 3 months of picking it up and putting it down for no good reason because I was having fun, I finally finished Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb, book 2 in the Farseer trilogy. I had so much fun with this book. I love Fitz. I love following him. Girl, I love Fitz. He's such a great character to follow. I think that he has just more and more depth each book that I read, and he's a really interesting character. Like, he has so much inner turmoil. I feel like he's a really relatable character. Even if you can't relate to the specific things that he's doing because you are not an assassin, I know I'm not, feelings that he has associated with everything he does feel so real and, if not relatable, understandable at least. He is just constantly feeling like he's being pulled in different directions, and no matter what he's doing, he's letting someone down. And you just see him go through and deal with so much in this book. He's not without his flaws, but I feel like you see him grow a lot, and his the flaws that you see are understandable ones based on, age and circumstance. This book did not at all end how I expected it to. I was just fascinated by that choice from Robin Hobb, and it left me really questioning what's going to happen next. It kind of changed the trajectory of where I thought the series would go, because it can't be the same after the ending of this book. And my reward system for myself with this series is I cannot buy the next one until I finish the one that I'm on. And so I finished Royal Assassin, and immediately the next day made a purchase and started Assassin's Quest. So this picks up exactly where Royal Assassin leaves off, and it's just as rich, it's just as enticing. I will say, I'm going to give kind of a broad statement and then make it a little bit more specific, but I'm kind of saying the same thing. And because I don't want to give any spoilers since it's obviously book 3 in a trilogy, but Fitz as a character, with how book 2 ends, experiences change and therefore needs to adapt. That's not a groundbreaking statement for a book. Based on the changes and transition that Fitz goes through, and I mean transition in a very general sense, but the transition he goes through in this book comes with a little bit of growing pains. So it was a tough first chapter, just from the stance of rooting for a character who's been through so much, but it was still really readable, and it's still just, I can't wait to see where it goes. Oh my gosh, I have to say too, oh my god, I hate Regal so much. He's so easy to hate. He's like if Joffrey was like more conniving and had like one extra brain cell. I Oh my god, I can't stand Regal. Oh my god, I want him to fall on his sword, to put it lightly. Um oh, I just got so mad at him reading that book. So newest fictional enemy. But when I picked up Assassin's Quest, I happened to see another book that's really highly anticipated for me. And I don't purchase new releases too often. I tend to lean towards books that I've read from the author before, or they've been on my anticipated list for a really long time, and friends that I share a reading taste with really like the book. So this one, people online like. And I feel like from the description, it's right up my alley, but it is a new release. So I broke some of my own rules just because I wanted to, and I probably should have just gotten it from the library, but I couldn't resist, and I picked up The Raven Scholar. I am so excited to read this. I really want to get to it this fall. I don't know that I will, because I'm in the middle of the Farseer trilogy. I'm in the middle of the Mistborn trilogy. This is almost 700 pages. I want to get to it, but I'm not going to make any promises, because I put too much pressure on myself sometimes to read like every book that exists. Fantasy, dark academia, I've heard really great reviews about it so far, and so I'm really excited to pick this up. I'm going to talk about two lows and then I'll end on a high. So I did finish one additional book this week. This one was a letdown for me. Did finish Evenings and Weekends by Oisín McKenna, and I really, honestly, it's like a 2.5 star. It's a 3 if I'm being generous, but I was just so disinterested while reading this. I was so underwhelmed. I went in thinking it would be a 5-star read. I went in with really high expectations. I do love a character focused life story. And you know how every domestic thriller where one of the partners is morally gray gets comped to Gone Girl, or every new political fantasy series gets comped to Game of Thrones. I feel like so many literary people being messy in their 20s, character focused stories get comped to Sally Rooney. And I think that, like those other comps I've mentioned, a lot of times that does the book a disservice, because with the Sally Rooney books that I've read, yes, they do follow some characters making bad decisions and, being quote unquote messy. But I feel like there's so many life lessons and reflections woven into that. And I feel like we see our characters grow and change and learn things. And I feel like we as the reader are able to reflect with them and really feel the story. And this book really only had the mess factor. I felt incredibly disconnected from the characters. I felt borderline unsympathetic towards some of them at a few points. Most of them I had some degree of sympathy for, but one in particular I didn't. It had mess, it had drama, it was character focused, but I didn't feel like we got any great reflections on life from this. And I do think that I'm in the minority. I think that from what I've seen online, other people have gotten a lot more out of this book. So don't count it out because of my feelings, but I read it to finish it. I didn't read it because I was enjoying it. And I was bummed just because I thought that this was a story that would stick with me and that I would love. Getting into some specifics about some of the characters, one character that I went kind of back and forth on was Phil, because we see him go through some really tough circumstances and we understand why he's the way he is. But I also felt when we were seeing him make choices and actions in his adult life, it did feel like some of the problems he was facing were self made because of his inability to open up to and be vulnerable to the people that care most about him. I understood from his perspective, he's not gonna open up to every Tom, Dick, and Sally, but he has a moment with his best friend where there's an opportunity to be vulnerable or to like share something that's weighing him down. In my opinion, as the reader, I was like, if you told your best friend that you were going through this, all of the evidence you have across your friendship points to that she would be supportive of you or that she would help you. One character that I had a really hard time feeling any sympathy for was Ed. I found him to be incredibly selfish and act really selfishly, but then because he felt bad about it, he wanted to be the victim in some ways. And I definitely think that Ed needed to go to therapy. I understood maybe where some of his words and actions came from, but when he was like feeling bad about himself, I was just kind of like, yeah, I would feel bad too if I screwed over that many people that cared about me. Or I would, yeah, I'd feel pretty bad about myself if I like couldn't be honest with my partner. He was a character that I had a tough time extending sympathy to. A lot of the parental characters, I felt a level of disconnect because I felt like we knew facts about them, but I didn't have any feelings towards them. I feel like maybe Maggie was the character that I could relate to the most, but I also felt like up until the last 25% of the book, her character was a vehicle for some of the other male characters to push their like continue their narrative, and she didn't really get her own narrative until the last 25%, and then it was like a really hard one. So yeah, 2.5 stars, a little bit of a disappointing read. And then I did end up DNFing Road of Bones. For starters, I requested that thing physically, electronically, and audibly through my library, and none of the loans have come in so far. That's the one, downside to being a library girl on a time crunch. Normally, like I'll read whatever when it comes in and I'm not picky, but if I have a book club, I need it by a certain date. And so I borrowed my fiance's Spotify so that I didn't run out of listening hours. Nothing was sticking. I didn't feel myself being immersed in the world. And I checked in with a friend who was a little bit further along in the book and said, like, okay, here's how I'm feeling with everything so far. Do you think I should push through? And she was like, I think it gets better, but I don't know that your feelings will change. So if you're feeling like a DNF, just DNF. So I decided to. And yeah, kind of bummed because it seemed like it could have been cool, but yeah, I just couldn't get into that one. Ending on a high note, however, I made it about 30% into Hero of Ages, book 3 in Mistborn Era 1. Really enjoying this. We're really starting to see the consequences of everyone's actions. A lot of the characters we've known since book 1 are taking some really interesting trajectories in terms of like where they are now. And I am just really interested to see where this story ends and where we go. I gave up trying to predict a Brandon Sanderson plot very early on to my Brandon Sanderson journey, but I'm having a lot of fun with this. I made it to about the 33% mark. I've been doing mainly the audiobook when I'm driving, and then I've done some tandem reading with the physical from my library. Excited to continue on in my Cosmere journey and, just read more of the universe, and I'm enjoying Hero of Ages. Thank you all so much for watching this video, following along, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.